You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Coming up, teens' mental health becomes the main focus for area professionals.
Clouds are a little bit deceiving, but do not worry. We are dry and eventually they're going to break and we'll get sunshine. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, if it's Thursday, you know what that means. Chef Anthony steps into studio to bring us a sweet yet salty recipe you don't want to miss out on. All that and more coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Bronte Sorotsky. The Cherokee County, Kansas Sheriff's Office has finished a county-wide registered offender compliance check. Authorities say there are more than 100 registered sex, drug, and violent offenders in the county. The check is to make sure they're following the conditions of their release. Officials say more than 95% of the offenders were in compliance. Those who were not were taken into custody or are now wanted. An online map and contact information will help Missouri families find free local summer food programs. Children under 18 will receive free meals at hundreds of locations in Missouri. The Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services Summer Food Service program provides breakfast, lunch, and/or snacks to children living in eligible areas when children do not have access to free or reduced price meals at school. To find the online interactive map of locations and more information on summer food sources in all 4 of our states, just click on the link at KOAMnewsnow.com. A Southwest Missouri-based food bank has reached a milestone in grants to its partners. On Wednesday, Ozarks Food Harvest announced it's awarded $1 million in grants this week alone to more than 70 of its area food bank partners. Officials say this push for grants was spurred by research from the University of Missouri Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security, which showed how much area food banks rely on assistance from Ozarks Food Harvest. Pittsburgh State's Bicknell Family Center for the Arts has a new exhibit focusing on one of the most well-known concentration camps of World War II. The exhibit features 14 photos taken at Auschwitz titled Auschwitz KZ 1 and 2. They were taken by a professional photographer who also teaches at Missouri Southern. The exhibit is free and is open to the public through June 30th. On Wednesday, a local organization gave veterans a chance to get a little mental health therapy by working with horses. Charlie Tutu Outdoors partnered with Risen Ranch Cowboy Church and Arena for Operation Risen Ranch. As part of the event, veterans learned how to shoe and groom horses.
This has been an event that I just really expect to grow because there's something about a horse and connecting, and the people that are involved here are very plugged in and supporting Charlie Tutu. And
the organization will host more events as part of Operation Risen Ranch, including ones in July, August, September, October, and November. The mental health of area teens was the focus of a program for area professionals. The Crawford County Mental Health Center hosted a seminar for people who work with teens ages 13 to 18. The seminar put the group through a series of exercises to help them identify teenagers struggling with mental health issues and provide them with help.
It makes us more aware of what their feelings and their needs are, and so I appreciate getting the extra advice, how to deal with kids when they're having emotional problems. So
you can find more information on classes like this one at crawfordmentalhealth.org. Gotta catch 'em all, Pokemon. Trainers, here's your latest look at Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet, the 2 new open world games in the franchise featuring new Pokemon and new professors. Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet arrive November 18th.
May I ask why you scoffed before you started that story?
I was like, am I supposed to read it in the way the show does it?
Yes.
I know.
As a matter of fact, you were.
I thought about it for a second. I didn't know what to do in the moment.
I know, that was the best part, was the delayed reaction, and I could tell.
I was processing. I'm like, okay.
Yes, I could tell. That was, and I wish you would have done that. Maybe later in the show we can revisit that story and have you give your best voice of that.
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, this does seem like a cool game. Got lots of different, I don't know, environments. I've never played a Pokemon game.
Do you remember the craze when kids were like walking into streets and walking into trees?
Oh, so that came out like my freshman year of college, and my roommates would go like hunting or like, I don't know, Pokemon hunting at like 10 at night, just walking around campus. And I was like, I don't know how safe that is, but you know, enjoy yourselves, I guess.
Got them out and about. The proactive part of it, if people said that it was actually a healthy activity. So there you go. I'm not going to lie to you. Never partook.
Yeah, you know, if it gets people outside.
Oh, absolutely. And today would be
a great day to do that.
Look at you. You are the segue master right there. And doing this with fighting some early morning cloud cover. And when I say fighting it, we don't have any rain to worry about. But it did. I tell you what, it was such a gorgeous sunrise. For those of you waking up with us, number one, thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning. But number two, don't be deceived because eventually we're going to get some sunshine out of this. We're not going to have to worry about any of the rain. It will stay way down to our south. We're just waiting on it to break just a little bit for us. As far as what we're looking at flood warning wise, yes, we still do have the countywide flood warnings throughout southeast Kansas. And then that dark green, the north, south, and east-west swaths that you see, those are river specific. And that's going to range from anything to the Verdigris, to the Fall, to the Neosho, Little Osage, and Marmonton River, all with flood warnings in effect right now. Temperatures, if you're up to the north, may want a light jacket. That should suffice. I think as you get into the central and southern portions, not going to have any problems because we're going to go from high 50s into the 70s here in a matter of, say 2-3 hours. Not going to be bad whatever. And the nice thing is with that jaunt up on the mercury, it's not going to be oppressively hot. Humidity is not going to be bad. Wind's going to work in from the north. And so that really does kind of help us out in the long run. Mild temps overnight, and we actually get to enjoy back-to-back days of this. We're going to have similar temperatures on Friday as well, and then we'll get into Saturday and Sunday, because while we keep warming up, number one, we have the reemergence of some precipitation that is going to be here for Saturday afternoon and then carry us into Saturday night / Sunday morning. And by the time we get into Sunday, if we're going to be up into the 80s like that, it could be just a little bit humid. Coming up next on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, one step closer to seeing what recipe Chef Anthony Fisher has in store for us. And later, kids who participate in sports have fewer mental health difficulties. We'll explain why as you're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today in studio we have Chef Anthony Fisher joining us back in studio, and this time we're making something both salty and sweet. We're making duck fat salted caramels. Caramels. We were making fun of Michael because he said caramel, and that's wrong, right? When you're talking about this.
Caramel is a noun. It is name used for a person, place, city, street. Caramel is cooked sugar.
And that's what we're making today.
That's what we're making today. And I'm going to start with, I have my pan ready to go. I have a glass candy thermometer. That's very, very important because you really have to watch your temperatures. And I'm adding 1.5 cups of sugar. And I'm adding 1/4 cup of corn syrup. And we're going to add that in there. And then we're going to add just enough water to make sure everything is wet.
Okay.
So I always bring a little extra so that I can make sure, because sometimes you have to add, sometimes you don't. Just all depends on what you get. And when you put your candy thermometer in here, make sure it's not touching the bottom. So as long as it's not touching the bottom, you'll get an accurate temperature of your sugar and not the temperature of the bottom of your pan. So, and I always use a glass candy thermometer versus any of the others. I think they're a little bit more accurate and a little easier to use. Sometimes you have to be a little careful because even I have to break out my reading glasses every once in a while to be able to read the numbers on them. But they actually will tell you on a good candy thermometer, it'll actually tell you what temperatures you're looking for what items, printed right on the back of the thermometer, right on the front of the thermometer, and the big increments that you're watching for are always in red. So you know when you're getting close to temperatures. Yeah. So we have everything going. We have our heat going.
Ooh, you doing that made me a little nervous.
Oh, I do this for a living. That's perfectly normal for me.
Yeah, he's a pro, everyone. Me, on the other hand.
I have 1 cup of cream. I have 5 tablespoons of rendered duck fat. I have 2 teaspoons of vanilla and 1 ounce of Knob Creek bourbon, so graciously provided by our friends over at Parrot Head Liquors. And this, you have to be very careful with the bourbon that you use in there because the sweet, the salt, everything amplifies the flavor. So if you don't have a good one to start with, you're going to get this weird funky taste in your caramels, and it's just not going to be good.
Okay.
So, and of course we have fruit from our friends over at Martinez Produce. It's beautiful this week. I couldn't believe how much fruit was in it.
Yeah,
So,
this looks great.
oh, I love that fruit. The varieties inside of there and the prices, can't beat it. So we have our sugar heating. Everything, we're going to cook the first batch of sugar. We're going to bring it up to 350 degrees. And then once it gets to 350 degrees, we'll remove it from the heat. We'll slowly add our cream and our duck fat to it and bring it up to 250 then from there. So we'll return it back to the heat and bring it up. But you want to make sure that you do take it off of the heat because as you add your cream, it will bubble very vigorously and you don't want it to go over the outside of your pot.
Right, you were saying that this is pretty, like when you're heating this up, it gets pretty hot.
Oh yes, this is not like when we made the marshmallows where we're just boiling it for a minute. We're actually increasing the temperature in it, so it's about 150 degrees hotter doing this versus when you're doing the marshmallows.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you have your have sleeves down, that you're covering. You don't want the hot sugar to get on your skin because it will just make for a bad day all the way around.
No, the way you were describing it to me does not sound pleasant.
But it's a lot of fun to use and a lot of fun to do. I like doing this one. Everybody I make this for, I did a batch of this and I made it super spicy.
Oh.
So it was a spicy sweet and didn't tell Tanya before I gave it to her. And the look in her eyes was priceless. Absolutely priceless.
Okay, this one isn't though, right?
No, this one's not. We're sticking to traditional on this. The only thing I'm doing a little bit different is, you know, I like to use my flavored salts. The salt that I have today is a flake salt, and it is bourbon barrel smoked.
Ooh.
So they've actually charred pieces of bourbon barrels and smoked the salt with it, and this is nice big flakes, so you have these really big pieces. It'll stand out real nice on top, plus the flavor comes through really well.
Okay.
So this is one of those ones you're going to make it twice. But if you buy a jar of duck fat like this, then you'll get probably 4 to 5 batches out of it. So you can practice a couple times to make sure that you get it right. And using duck fat, you can actually wrap this in plastic and freeze it. And it takes about 10 minutes to come down to a temperature that you can serve it where it's nice and soft, where everybody likes their caramel to be. So it doesn't take long at all, but you can store it and you'll get about 6 months out of it in the freezer.
Wow, and where can people get duck fat around here?
You can get duck fat at some of the grocery stores. I personally, because I like this brand, I go to the natural grocery stores over in Joplin. Because I just really, really love that brand. I love the quality that it has. And they have a really good price on it. That jar is only about $10.
Oh.
So you just pick which one you want and go with it. Try a few different ones.
Sounds like it's starting to make
It
some
is
noise
starting to
over there.
snap and crackle a little bit. And we're gonna let it keep going and keep heating. And we'll add, right before we take it out and get ready to put it in the pan, we'll add our salt and our vanilla and our bourbon to it and get everything all nice and yummy and ready to go.
Oh, I'm excited. It's starting to smell pretty good too.
Oh, yes. And I love doing this one because you can see right on here there's a nice little big bright red line that you can follow up. And we're going to take it all the way up to 350 degrees.
Oh, wow.
So it gets pretty interesting in it. And I have a lot of fun working with it. So.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the temperatures and I'm trying my best to be careful over here. I'm not even doing anything, but me and the kitchen are not the best combination, so.
Oh, you should come take my class then.
Yeah, I probably should.
I teach this without the bourbon. I actually teach this to my students in school.
Oh, great.
So they learn how to do this. They learn to cook with sugar. They learn to do the marshmallows. We do creme brulee where they're actually using a torch. I teach all of this.
That is super cool.
So cooking builds confidence. And the key to doing anything is just confidence, whether you're competing in something, and I love competitions, or if you're just doing something at home or you're going to cook for a significant other in your family, a significant other in your life, having the confidence to sit down and go, I'm going to do this and this is how I'm going to do it, goes a long ways.
Definitely.
So one key thing that you do want to think about with this is you need to make sure that your cream is not straight out of the refrigerator. It needs to sit out for about half an hour because you don't want it cold, or you need to heat it in the microwave in 30-second intervals. You don't want it hot. You want it right around room temperatures, 70 degrees, 75 degrees, so that when you pour it in there, it's not as big a shock.
Oh, okay.
If it's really cold and you pour it in, it forms a big lump in the bottom. It's real hard to whisk out. So
that makes sense.
you can whisk it out. It just tends to be a little bit of
You just want to avoid all that drama.
Yeah, you do. And we're watching our temperature. Right now, we're at about 230 degrees, so we're doing really good with it, and we'll keep everything rolling. When you go to store this, you're going to have so much fun with it. You can wrap this in parchment paper, individually wrap the candies. Makes a great Christmas gift. Throw them in a jar. But you don't have to necessarily wrap it. You could just give them a block like you do fudge. Cut it into cubes, present it like you would fudge. Great for dinner parties.
Yeah, this seems great. I mean, how, in terms of difficulty, what would you rank this?
Probably a 3, just because it's cooking with sugar and you have to be so fixated on the sugar itself, making sure that you don't go over, because all candies cook to a certain temperature. And it doesn't take long to go from a soft caramel to a lollipop hard. So we want to be careful that we don't overcook it, that we're being very mindful of the temperatures on it. But we do have to get it to temperatures because we want to cook all the water, all moisture out of it. So, and basically at this moment, the way that this is just a high fructose corn syrup. That's basically what it is. So learning to do this, you can do all sorts of stuff. You can make sugar glass, which is a lot of fun. You can do honey dust, which is a lot of fun to use. And you can sweeten honey dust, you can sweeten your coffee and your tea. And it takes just a fraction of the amount of honey dust as it does for sugar or any other sweetener. And it's natural.
Okay.
So if you get those people who say, well, for allergies, eat some local sugar. That's exactly what you're going to do.
Alternative.
You can use it right in there if you don't like the way regular honey tastes, because it doesn't have that same taste. It just has a very unique Fun Dips-esque texture to it.
Well, that's fun.
So it's a lot of fun to use.
Definitely.
So we're almost at temperature, so if you'd like to take a break, when we come back, we can show the good stuff.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, when we come back, I guess we'll see the finished product.
I'll show you how to put everything into it, and then I'll show you the finished product.
I was getting a little too ahead of myself. So when we come back, we will go over all of that. Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We are back in studio with Chef Anthony Fisher, and we are still. So we have the finished product.
We have the finished product, but we're going to go through the hard part now.
Man, I was hoping we could skip all that.
We're at temperature right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my whisk, and I'm going to start whisking my sugar, and I'm slowly going to pour in my cream.
Oh.
And you can see all the steam from the moisture, the water that's in the cream is coming out really quickly.
Oh wow, that looks completely different now. It's more, before it was all liquid, now it's kind of like a foam. A foam, yeah.
And we have all of our cream in, and we're going to give it a really good whisk. And see, it does start to loop together a little bit, and we're going to add our duck fat the exact same way.
Okay, so can you remind me what the duck fat does?
The duck fat adds, instead of using butter, the duck fat is just the fat, just adding more fat to it so that you get a little bit more flavor to it. And I like the duck fat because it does give you that option of putting it in the freezer. You can't do that with butter.
Okay.
So
right.
The duck fat will allow you to put it into the freezer. Now we'll cook it up to 250 degrees. When it reaches 250 degrees, we'll take it off of the stove and we'll add our bourbon and our vanilla, and we'll line a pan with just some simple parchment paper. Push it down into the corners. It doesn't have to be fancy because it's homemade, it's handcrafted, so you want those little imperfections of the paper in your finished candy.
Okay.
So, and then spray it a little bit with some pan spray, pour right into it, and away it goes. Right. So we're almost back up to temperature again.
Yeah. So what is that? What are we at right now?
We are at 230 degrees.
Okay. Oh wow, it's really foaming up there.
Oh yes. And the smell has completely changed.
It has. It kind of, Kind of smells like when you're making pancakes. Does that
I like that
resonate
smell.
with you?
And people that, and it hits different for different people. I had a chef that I worked for who said it reminded him of Belgian waffles. Not Eggo waffles, but Belgian waffles.
The real stuff.
The really good stuff. So, and I'm just watching my temperature, and I'm almost there. And we will pour this and the salt into it in just a second.
Okay, now it's starting to smell a little more like the caramel that I'm kind of used to.
Adding 1 tablespoon of my salt. I'm adding my vanilla and my bourbon into it.
Oh, whoa.
And it's gonna foam again because there's water in there. Not much, but a little bit from the vanilla.
Wow, I mean, you're the expert here, but it looks like it's getting really close to the edge of the pot.
It is, but I do it so many times I know exactly which one to use. So I pretty much have it down. This is just a 2-quart stock pot that a 1-quart sauce pot that I use for it.
Okay.
So I'm going to take out my candy thermometer, make sure that you don't touch it with your hand.
Okay.
And we're going to, I forgot to do the spritz.
Oh. Can't forget the spritz.
We're going to give a little spray to our paper and then pour it right on in there.
Oh.
Just that simple. And let it sit. Now in about 10 minutes, you're going to sprinkle salt on the top of it so that you can get all the essence and all the effects of the salted caramel texture that you get so used to using and having. And to wash, if you take this and all your sticky stuff, put it back in the pan, put water in it, put it back on here and boil it for 4 minutes, all the sugar will cook off of your utensils.
Oh.
Makes it real easy to wash.
I was gonna ask
And then
about
another
that.
minute or two, the pan will wash real easy.
Oh, perfect.
So it'll make life real easy for you to do.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing that was kind of stressing me out when I was looking at this. I was like, how do you clean all that off?
So that's the easiest way to do it. That's how I teach my students to do it. And then right here we have our finished product.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, and you can see the large salt crystals that I use. You can actually see them on top of the caramel, so you know you're going to get that flavor that you're looking for.
Yeah, no, that looks really good. Oh, you're going to cut a piece?
We're going to cut a piece off just for you.
Just for me. Oh.
And cut it into the size pieces that you want. Anytime right before I cut it, I put it in the refrigerator for about 10 minutes. Then I bring it out and I get ready to start cutting it, and it makes things real simple. So I usually cut it into about 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch squares so that it makes it real easy to eat, because it is caramel, so it's sticky. And the more you handle it, the more it's going to warm up. Now, after about 10 minutes of being out and cut, sitting at room temperature, this will come out and be just as soft as a Tootsie Roll that you've had in your pocket for an hour. You know, that gooey, ooey gooey, wonderful Tootsie Roll? See, look how beautiful.
Wow, look at that plating of it too.
They're so beautiful, so wonderful to do. They have such a rich flavor into them. Here, try one.
Okay. Here, you have to do one with me.
I can do that. You ready?
Cheers. That was really good.
Isn't that great?
It doesn't taste anything like when you get it from the store. It's like, wow, that is really good.
It's totally different than what most people are used to, but the flavor's there. It's natural, it's intense, and it's easy enough to do. I mean, we did it right here this morning, and it doesn't take very long at all.
No, did not take long at all. Well, thank you so much for joining us in
happy.
here. I'm so excited. I might even try this at home, and I'm definitely going to see if I can take some of this with me, because this is pretty good.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Everybody likes this stuff.
Definitely. But thank you so much for joining us today.
And we'll see you next week.
Yes, definitely. See you next week. And we'll be right back after the break.
In Health Watch this morning, kids who participate in a team sport seem to experience fewer mental health difficulties. This is all from a new study from Cal State University. Interestingly, though, researchers also found that children who exclusively play an individual sport, say tennis, golf, something like that, they may face greater mental health difficulties than kids who do no sports at all. French researchers are reporting trained dogs may do a better job of detecting COVID-19 in patients, better so than rapid testing. In the study, specifically trained canines sniffing sweat samples were able to detect COVID successfully in nearly all cases. By comparison, rapid tests picked up 84% of the cases. That's according to a study published in the medical journal PLOS ONE. Rapid tests were slightly better than trained dogs in identifying negative cases, but in 2 of the false positive cases, get this, the dogs were apparently confused by other forms of coronavirus instead of COVID-19. Researchers say the dogs show great promise for being used when tests are difficult to administer, like in nursing homes and at large events. They also point out canines are less invasive than other forms of COVID testing and also work more quickly than a lab test. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:35. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Funerals continued in Uvalde, Texas on Wednesday for victims of the mass school shooting. As community members grieve, they are also still asking questions about the police response at Robb Elementary. Bradley Blackburn has the latest.
At a church in Uvalde, funerals were held yesterday for 10-year-old Jose Flores Jr. and for teacher Irma Garcia and her husband Joe Garcia. After his wife was gunned down in her school, he laid flowers at her memorial and hours later suffered a fatal heart attack. Mourners have come from far and wide to support this small community and pay their respects to the 19 children and 2 teachers who were killed.
I lost my grandson to gun violence last year.
But there is also frustration from parents like Anjali Gomez. She was held back by police from entering Robb Elementary.
Nothing was being done. If anything, they were being more aggressive on us parents that were willing to go in there.
Public officials are also finger-pointing, angry that police stayed outside while trapped children were calling 911.
I want to know why they weren't into that building, why they weren't in that classroom. These little children were dialing in.
On Wednesday, the school district's police chief, Pete Arredondo, who ordered officers to remain outside the classroom during the shooting, said he is speaking regularly with investigators from the Texas Department of Public Safety. That after the agency told CBS News Tuesday that Arredondo had not responded to interview requests from the Texas Rangers, who were leading the investigation. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News.
The school district in Uvalde announced Wednesday that students and staff will not return to Robb Elementary campus in the fall. Plans are still being finalized to hold classes elsewhere. Well, if you're traveling eastbound on the Will Rogers Turnpike, you might need to rethink your route. Mile marker 312, which is 1 mile west of Miami, Oklahoma, is closed due to a jackknifed pickup truck and trailer that lost a load of sheet metal. All eastbound traffic is being diverted off the Afton exit, mile marker 302. Tolls were suspended around 6:40 a.m. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation released autopsy results for an inmate who died while in custody at the Ottawa County Jail. Authorities say 38-year-old Michael Victor died in November of last year after around a month in the jail. The sheriff's office says Victor had a medical emergency. Jailers tried to render aid and took him to the hospital where he later died. On Wednesday, the OSBI announced autopsy results showed he died as a result of fentanyl poisoning. On Wednesday, the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce announced its new president. Travis Steffens will be taking over the role. Steffens has more than a decade of experience in community and economic development, having served in different roles in Bella Vista and Bentonville, Arkansas areas, among others. His first day as president will be June 28th. On Wednesday, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly announced upgrades to the state's unemployment insurance system. During pandemic lockdowns, many people lost their jobs and filed unemployment for help, but were met with several glitches and delays as the state dealt with a wave of fraudulent claims. Now the state says its system has been modernized after 26 months and $48 million in work, some of which came from federal grants. The upgrades includes a brand new IT legacy system, customer experience enhancements, and improved data security. Well, for the first time in more than 2 decades, legendary football coach John Madden is back on the cover of the popular Madden video game. Madden died last December. Now he'll be on the cover of all 3 editions of this year's game. The Hall of Famer was featured on the cover of the first 13 editions of the game until the year 2000. Remastered audio clips of Madden's voice will also be featured on the latest edition. To further honor Madden, game maker Electronic Arts also announced it's giving $2.5 million to the John Madden Legacy Commitment to Education charity. Madden NFL 23 is expected to be released later this summer.
I think for people probably my age and older, they hope this puts John Madden in a new light for a future generation to maybe, and I don't want to say open their eyes to it because they probably don't know. They associate John Madden with a video game and the fact that he was one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time. While he only had 1 Super Bowl, he went to 7 AFC championship games. 7.
That's
amazing.
Impressive.
Absolutely
Yes.
amazing. Youngest coach, when he was hired, he's the youngest coach ever to be hired in the NFL. 59 degrees over 7th and Range Line. Waiting on the clouds to break. That's it. That's the only thing we got to wait on because all the rain stays way down to the south. Don't have to worry about any of that southerly push. That is great news for us. And eventually, once the clouds do begin to break, I'd say probably about 10, 11 o'clock this morning, that is. 10, 11 o'clock this morning, we're already talking about working up into the 70s. Sunny skies, not too bad whatsoever for today and tomorrow. However, we do have rain beginning to formulate Saturday afternoon and Sunday up into the 80s. That could be a tad bit muggy. Be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. We take this time to honor this morning's 4-state hero. Ensign Lauren McDonald from Fredonia, Kansas served from 1942 to 1945, a part of Air Group 10 and a veteran of World War II. We salute you, Ensign Lauren McDonald, this morning's 4-state hero. This morning on our Something to Talk About, our KOAM News Now Insta poll, asking if you're excited about the World Cup. This coming off of Ukraine's national football team beating Scotland yesterday 3-1, meaning Ukraine is now 1 win away from qualifying for the World Cup. They'll play Wales over the weekend to find out if they do qualify. Oh, by the way, the winner of the Ukraine-Wales match will play the United States in the first leg of the World Cup in late November. Our question for you, are you excited about the FIFA World Cup? And like I said, it's late November until it transpires, so we certainly have enough time. But 89% of you say, no, not too much right now. I'm interested to see if that changes, especially if Ukraine qualifies. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News and Consumer Watch right after this.
In Consumer Watch this morning, new collective bargaining agreements take effect this week to bring equal pay to the U.S. men's and women's national soccer teams. Matt Napolitano has the details.
After years of legal battles and advocacy for pay equity by the U.S. women's national soccer team, the U.S. Soccer Federation announcing both the women's and men's national teams have agreed to first-of-their-kind collective bargaining agreements achieving equal pay as part of a new standard for the sport internationally. The 2 agreements, which run through 2028, have identical economic terms. Both the men's and women's senior national teams, the stars you see on the World Cup stage, will pool the prize money earned from the FIFA global tournaments to be distributed equally to players on both sides, as well as identical game appearance fees for international matches. These agreements bring to an end a years-long effort by women's national players to draw attention to pay disparity with their male counterparts, despite greater success on the international stage by the women's program.
This deal is going to have ramifications throughout the entire world. You know, it's a game-changing moment here in the U.S., but it has the potential to change how international soccer and international sport do business.
These agreements mark a promise kept by U.S. Soccer Federation President Cindy Parlow-Cone, who was reelected to her post earlier this year, running on the basis of addressing the equal pay issue. We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
Remember the old phrase from that TV show? I can't remember. It was like pseudo-reality, but it was all caught on camera. When animals attack. Well, this one was a woodpecker. If you have not seen this video, it is astounding. Small bird created a big stir. It got caught in a woman's hair. Now, the one thing I want you to concentrate on while you watch this, watch how calm she is through this entire ordeal. Jeannie Moose has the story.
If you've ever seen a woodpecker peck, then you might imagine Brittany Bronson was in a peck of trouble when she ended up with a woodpecker in her hair.
Did you scream?
No, I was just like, okay, so this just happened.
The baby woodpecker had slammed into a glass window at Brittany's North Carolina home, so she went to investigate.
He's kind of looking at me like this, and then he jumps on my head.
She headed around to the front door to get her brother,
Colton, can you come help me?
Colton, to the rescue.
What is going on? Why is that thing on your head?
As if it were a hat.
What the hell am I supposed to do?
Oh no!
I would be freaked out that the woodpecker would start pecking.
Oh, I was like this, so I was trying to, cover my eyes and my face.
Brittany's brother methodically started to untangle the bird's feet from Brittany's hair. How are you so calm? TikTok viewers marveled. In moments, her brother, an engineer, freed the woodpecker and gently set it down. Folks online naturally called it Woody. Next morning, it hopped towards Brittany as if she were Mom. Brittany put it in a cat carrier and took the bird to Holly's Nest Animal Rescue. It's too young to feed itself, and since the parents seem to have disappeared, the woodpecker will be rehabbed here.
My mom used to make the joke when I was a kid, you need to go brush your hair, it looks like a bird's nest.
And since she was wearing it up...
Well, that does look like a nest.
Yeah.
And if the bird couldn't get to the nest came to the bird. Genemos, CNN, New York.
In other words, when crazy things happen in your life and you're looking for the sanest, calmest person that you can find, Brittany Bronson is the person. I don't know how she didn't just go ballistically crazy when that happened. Oh, by the way, our incomparable producer, Tim, he did find the show When Animals Attacked, hosted by one Robert Urich, dating back to the mid-1980s of all things. Thank you, Tim, because that way people know that I wasn't just making that show up, that it actually did exist. Daily Almanac for this June the 2nd. I want to pay attention to our annual rain accumulation pushing up to 27 inches. We are 8 inches above normal right now, but even with today's cloudy skies, we get a chance to eventually get a little sunshine, no worries about any rain. What we do need to kind of watch the clock for, let's just think count down and get rid of these flood warnings that we have county-wide, and lime green is the county-wide ones. The darker greens that you see, those are river-specific. We've got the verdigris, the fall, the Neosho, the Osage, the Little Osage, and the Marmaton, all under flood warnings right now. Going to feel a little cooler up to the north, that's for sure. Still holding on to the mid-50s in Iola and Yates Center, but wait till this afternoon. Clouds break, mid-70s, staying dry for Thursday and Friday. Come Saturday, that's when we get the reemergence of rain, begins for the afternoon. Central northern portion spreads to the south Saturday night into Sunday. Be back with KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. A gunman opened fire inside a medical office building in Tulsa, Oklahoma on Wednesday. The suspect killed at least 4 people before dying of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Investigators said the man was carrying a handgun and a rifle and appeared to use both weapons during the attack. A Virginia jury has awarded Johnny Depp over $10 million in a defamation case against his ex-wife, Amber Heard. The case centered around her claims of physical and emotional abuse during their marriage. The jury also awarded $2 million to Heard after finding Depp liable for defaming her when his lawyer called her allegations a hoax. Queen Elizabeth II is marking 70 years on the throne today. The 96-year-old is the longest reigning monarch in British history. The Queen was 25 when she ascended the throne in 1953 upon the death of her father, King George VI.
We can finally stop talking about the Jubilee, and it's actually underway now.
I know.
Am I correct on that?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, it seems like we've done 2 weeks of Jubilee preps.
And now it's here.
And now it's here. Parting skies for the clouds, eventually mid-70s this afternoon, high 70s on Friday. we can keep the rain at bay until Saturday afternoon.
Well, a group of goats is making yard work and weed removal easier and more eco-friendly. Goats on the Go is a program that brings goat herds to properties to eat up invasive vegetation and unwanted shrubs. The goat herd serving the La Crosse area is kicking off the summer at a farm in Sparta, eating away weeds and shrubs around an old barn. The herd's owner says the feasters can eat more than what they found on the ground. Along with the process being chemical-free, goats can often handle the terrain better than the machinery. These 69 goats will spend a week here clearing the vegetation.
I believe it's a tribe.
Of goat? Is that what they're called?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I think
cool.
so. No,
Yeah.
I mean, don't hold me to that. I'm pretty sure it's a tribe.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning. Back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and a better day.